So first thing I'm going to jump into is this, and it's basically this particular PDF. Now, I decided to force feed this into Grok, and as you see here, there is some highlights from this CN, again, super long number, not going to name it all, PDF. All right, so for one, there's a little bit of English, and of course a lot of Overledger, and of course we'll get into a little bit of the XRP and Stellar and so on, and a little bit of ZBCN. Yeah, ZBCN. Look at this, constant mentions of obviously Overledger. All right, is this all I have? Well, no, but again, I didn't want to do all 33 pages of trying to read obviously Chinese. So when I put this into Grok, it came up with, for example, many different pages. I said, let's, interpret this. Show me what you got. It mentions Quant Network's filing of CN 1114-33-803A in China underscores its ambition to leverage its Overledger technology in one of the world's largest blockchain markets. The patent's focus on interoperability, transaction ordering, and secure cross-ledger transactions aligns with China's blockchain priorities, positioning Quant for potential partnerships, licensing opportunities, or integrations with platforms like BSN. Now, this part about BSN, that was really eye-opening for me because I've been trying to do an outline in regard to BSN for a while. It says this move reflects a strategic effort to establish a foothold in China's rapidly growing blockchain ecosystem while protecting its innovative technology through local IP rights.
If managing your crypto feels like solving a puzzle, it's time to switch to Decent Wallet. It's just a few taps. You can manage, track, and secure your crypto with unmatched ease. And here's the best part. Grab your Decent Wallet at a discounted price by using the referral link below. Don't miss out on making your crypto experience smoother and more secure.
I mean, at the end of the day, to take this document, and that's what it came to the conclusion of, I do think that's a major big deal moving forward, especially if you're a QNT holder or you're thinking about getting into QNT. Is this all I have? No, of course not. As I pull up more about this and why it matters to you, I want to share this. On a search I did, there's this platform called Tipalti came up. It says, what is a SWIFT payment? A lot of you guys already know what SWIFT payment is. I'm not going to get into that. But it says the SWIFT network doesn't transfer funds, nor is it a banking system. Instead, it sends payment orders between banks using SWIFT, which of course is Society of Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication, and of course those codes. Well, messages as well, right? Like ISO 222. Well, I'm finally posting research, of course, on X. So instead of me citing somebody else, and of course shout out to Smoke, I always cite Smoke, but it's been a while since I posted on X, and I used to write quite a few different discussions and articles back in my college days. But whatever the case be, I wanted to point this out. I said, attention XRP and XLM army. Not trying to cause division here. Why would I? Right. That wouldn't make any sense. I'm diversified into the X's as well, but hear me out, please. We know that ISO TC307 will help orchestrate ISO 222 messaging, but did you know that Quant PayScript is the next generation of Swift messaging? In fact, it complements it. All right, well, this part. I took a screenshot, of course, from Quant Flow, and then I highlighted this with my own research. It's the first financial scripting language for banks. Quant's powerful but easy to use rules engine, I should say, for money. And of course, I have a long, comprehensive, deep dive, I guess you could say, article about this. And I highly encourage you guys to basically take a look into it. Again, back to the whole thing of BSN. So when I was trying to find out specific information from BlockDaemon, like with the BSN Spartan network, I came to this roadblock. Decided to do a little bit of Wayback Time Machine, but in reality, some of it wasn't fully necessary, but some of it was. Interesting to see this part in the snapshot from June 18, 2024. Points out that BSN BlockDaemon provides BSN infrastructure services, including staking, coming soon, wallet integration, coming soon. And again, June 18, 2024. Now, we heard Gilbert Verdian mention specifically about staking. And like it says here, market data provided by Staking Rewards. As you see there, CMC, CoinGecko, right? But again, it's not so much about what is BSN Spartan Network. It's more of the whole thing of like nodes and APIs coming soon, staking coming soon, wallet coming soon. These are all things for the most part, other than nodes, right, that are coming soon. Obviously, Quant Network, especially with the Overwallet. Call it a coincidence, call whatever you want. Thought that was interesting. I will read this a little bit about BSN Spartan Network if you're new. Here's what it is. The BSN Spartan Network is a public infrastructure network based on the lightweight BSN Spartan data center software, which of course is open source, free, anonymous, for anyone to install. Within the data center, the nodes of several non-cryptocurrency public chains can be installed and accessed. Well, doesn't Quant also do that? Absolutely. By removing the cryptocurrencies from public chains layer 1, the BSN Spartan Network's mission is to provide non-cryptocurrency public chain services to all IT systems around the world to enjoy this kind of public IT system infrastructure. Some of you guys in the Quant community have pointed out that you feel as though, but you didn't have like a smoking gun, that you felt as though there's something there when it comes to Quant and, speculatively speaking, BSN. I will so elaborate on this and show you, in my opinion, some evidence to support that there really is something there. And if you ever study BSN, you already know how big that is. Let's go ahead and get more into this. So the next part is this whole thing about BlockDaemon. Back in November 16th, 2023, BlockDaemon, among founders of BSN Spartan Network governing body, just in case you didn't know. BSN's foundation's non-cryptocurrency, think about how that's quoted, approach aims to create a stable network that would not be as volatile as traditional cryptocurrencies like BTC. Okay, so that's interesting. Okay, they're Singapore-based, global blockchain infrastructure. We kind of get the gist, but their founding members include institutional digital asset wallet BlockDaemon. Okay, so that's pretty major, to say the least. Now, this other part, for me, well, it is kind of more than interesting. Did a simple Google search, and you typed in, for example, China needs a stablecoin, right? Well, of course they do. It says China is considering alternatives like Chinese yuan-based stablecoins to counter the perceived threats from US-backed digital currencies. This is updated about 2 days ago from AI Invest or A Invest, but the global expansion of US stablecoins is viewed as potentially weakening local currency sovereignty. Multiple searches within the last few days, couple days, 5 days, weeks ago, show a complete alignment that China does feel threatened by US stablecoins, and there's basically like an urge here, okay? So Ledger Insights post this, Crypto News, Cointelegraph, I mean, across the board, there's clearly something going on here, right? South China Morning Post, lots of different searches you can find this, right? Check this out for a moment. If we go over to that first one about ainvest.com, talks about China seeks counter US stablecoins with yuan-based alternatives. Okay, what else do we have? They expressed, as in China, concerns over the influence of US dollar-backed stablecoins such as Tether and USDC, and they even highlight these in recent policy discussions and in Beijing. The move signals China's strategic intent to potentially curtail US monetary influence by exploring yuan-based stablecoin solutions. The Chinese government has voiced rising concern over the growing impact, of course, of US stablecoins, but they cite them as examples that threaten China's monetary authority. Of course, there's the whole thing about these academic advisors and so on, but China is considering alternatives like Chinese yuan-based stablecoin to counter perceived threats, of course, from US-backed digital currencies. What about US-backed digital currencies that could be attached to, let's say, gold? That's always been speculative. I feel as though it's not, but that's just my own opinion. I did try to bring receipts on that, but it is what it is. This part about liquidity says their global expansion enhances dollar liquidity and influence. If left unchecked, could erode China's financial autonomy and deepen worldwide reliance on the dollar. Again, referring to stablecoins like Tether and Circle. This trend could lead to significant regulatory changes worldwide, particularly if China's influence encourages others to explore similar routes. All right. Well, is that going to be a real thing? Well, for some of you guys, you want me to get more into the now. Well, let's talk about the now. 2 days ago, roughly, depending on when you get this video, China threatened by the United States stablecoins. G7 urged to tackle Lazarus Group. Asia Express, top Chinese think tank, urges Beijing to tackle U.S. stablecoin threat, crypto scams, rattle Thailand's tourism industry, and much, much more. Citation comes from Cointelegraph. Okay? That's interesting. And of course, what you see here is a little bit about this commentary. But in my findings, what I thought to be extremely interesting was the description of stablecoins like USDT and USDC as digital dollar shadow system. Now, some of you guys feel as though that it's just Tether with that shadow system. But USDC has been brought up quite a bit lately. Myself and Ruben bringing that up. I've been bringing it up on some of the other videos I do with Channing and obviously Jesse over Apex Crypto Consulting. But yeah, whether it's Keen Channing or Apex, right? It's the whole argument that if left unchecked, greenbacked pegged stablecoins could erode China's financial autonomy and deepen worldwide reliance on the dollar. Well, for people in the United States, they feel as though, well, that's China's problem. But there's so much more to just that, right? These authors, who I'm not going to get too deep on a deep dive, I should say, point out that they call stablecoins double-edged sword. In the event of mass redemptions, issuers could be forced to liquidate large volumes of short-term U.S. debt. Say what you want. Who has been recently in the news talking about some of this? Cathie Wood. And if anything, that's something to be said in itself, because she talks about specifically by like 2030, the selling of, for example, BTC. Somebody has to sell that. Does that mean a big dump on all of us? What about the ones with real utility moving forward? Again, not trying to make controversy or conspiracy, but it's eye-opening. As I pull up more about this and why it matters to you, the piece adds that in countries with weak currencies and volatile exchange rates, crypto is increasingly substituting for local money. The commentary outlines a broader geopolitical strategy course for China, and this includes internationalizing its own fiat currency by using blockchain infrastructure. All right, enough about that for a moment. Because, again, the other part I want to jump into is this from CryptoNews.com. And it's the whole idea that China should use offshore stablecoin to boost global currency role. And, of course, that's according to experts. But, again, offshore, who would be the offshore and who would be, no pun intended, part of that settlement flow? Who would test China's influence over decentralized finance infrastructure? Again, last updated June 11th, but whatever the case be, interesting to see this. And here's the key takeaways. There's a proposal here, ladies and gentlemen, and it's basically outlining a phased rollout starting in Hong Kong. I've mentioned this before, kind of flew under the radar, went over people's heads. Now it's back in the news again. It cites regulatory readiness and digital finance infrastructure. Stablecoins can improve cross-border transaction speed, lower costs. We get it. Tether's existing CNY denominated stablecoins are mentioned as early proof of technical feasibility and limited demand. Limited demand? Why is that? Because people have lost a lot of confidence in many years over Tether. But whatever the case be, in the article they argue that CNY stablecoin outside mainland China begins with Hong Kong. And would that support the currency's presence in global trade and finance while avoiding direct conflict with existing capital controls? Well, draw your own conclusion in regard to that. But one more part about this. These authors describe the approach as a practical response to the growing dominance of US dollar-backed stablecoins. Again, so many different sources all in agreement about this particular topic. And what about the World Bank? World Bank cites the whole thing of their estimate that traditional cross-border remittances average 5 days costs over 6%, while stablecoin transfers can occur instantly for a fraction of a cent. Again, supply meets demand. All right, would offshore stablecoin extend Yuan's reach? I think the answer is yes, but Tether's issuance of CNY denominated stablecoins totaling over 20 million won, 2.8 million roughly, is cited as evidence that offshore yuan digital assets are technically viable and already in limited use. All right, enough about that. At the end of the day, what about Quant Network for a brief moment? And I swear we have some about XRP and Stellar too, but let's face it, this is definitely going to be dominated by Quant Network. So in summary, if Quant Network does a stablecoin for China, what would it mean for basically China and of course the United States? Here's summary. Quant Network powered stablecoin for China would likely be a significant step in the global digital currency landscape with the potential to shift financial power dynamics. While it could offer benefits like increased efficiency and reduced transaction costs, it would also likely lead to further friction and competition between the United States and China in the digital currency space. So would it be a win for both of us? Okay, might very well be, but this brings us to the next part. Because ARK Invest points this out. Stablecoins could become one of the United States government's most resilient financial allies. So is that why we have so much focus on it? Well, in my opinion, yes. Because in reality, even though we see the citation from June 5th, pretty recent, in reality, the only thing that has clear clarity right now, ladies and gentlemen, is stablecoins. Until we get regulatory approval and bills basically passed, and again, some of those regulations, real regulations moving forward. So ARK has Big Ideas 2025 report. They offered investors in-depth view of the digital asset space. It did include stablecoins, but they point out since January the supply of stablecoins has surged more than 20% to 247 billion, surpassing 1% of the US M2 money supply. That's major. Tether and Circle continue to dominate the market at 150 billion and 61 billion respectively, with a combined market share of more than 85%. Now, of course, they have argument in this article about how stablecoins could become one of the United States government's most important strategic assets during the next 5 to 10 years. But in reality, think about this. Again, the question of why. Percentage of foreign holdings of U.S. debt have declined, and it's not just a little bit, everybody, it's sharply. Over the past 15 years, a trend likely to continue given evolving geopolitical stresses and strains, including trade tariffs enacted, of course, by the Trump administration. Meanwhile, the Federal Reserve remains unlikely to step up as a major buyer, given its ongoing commitment to quantitative tightening. All right. They feel as though stablecoin market is poised for exponential growth, and, of course, with the supply projected to increase 5 to 10 times over the next 5 years. So instead of printing money, everybody, think about this. Basically, stablecoins 5 to 10x over the next 5 years, because you have something you could follow. Programmable money has, for example, a paper trail, right? And with that paper trail, it's understanding what talks to what and what happened on a public verified ledger. We're not getting rid of cash completely. It seems as though we are, but again, it's going from the legacy systems to the next era. As I get you to the next part of what's important here, keep in mind that Quant Network has not developed stable coins. Some people say, no, that's not true. Yes, it is. Quant Network does not develop and issue its own stablecoins. Instead, they focus on providing Overledger platform, which enables enterprises to create, mint, and manage stablecoins using multi-ledger token technology across various blockchain protocols. In essence, Overledger allows organizations like central banks, financial institutions, and fintech companies to leverage multi-ledger tokens, the MLTs, for purposes such as cross-border payment services, supply chain tracking, trading and investing between consortium blockchain systems, and of course loyalty point voucher systems. All right, so therefore Quant Network doesn't create or directly create stablecoins. Instead, they provide underlying tech and infrastructure that allows enterprises to develop their own or issue their own stablecoins on different blockchains. Just want to point that out as well. All right, what about Quant's stance in the case for commercial stablecoins? Well, Gilbert Verdian pointed this out back in May 17, 2022, and I want to highlight this. In the quotation from Gilbert, he states, privately issued digital currencies backed by fiat or commodities will become an essential counterpoint to CBDCs, issued by regulated private companies, financial institutions, and banks. Many are already live. Think about that for a moment. And then also, think about this. I've highlighted this for you. It's the fostering of those commercial stablecoins. Much like the early days of the internet, there is an interoperability limitation hindering the global use of commercial stablecoins. Today, they can only transact on the network they were initially issued on. Worse, they can only be redeemed for fiat with the bank or consortium member that minted them. And of course, blockchain and DLT's limited in interconnectivity, making it difficult to move or transact stablecoins from one network to another. Or should I say, how then does the commercial stablecoin live up to the potential? The answer is threefold. Make it easy to issue, make it usable on any blockchain, and make it simple to redeem into fiat and vice versa. Once these factors are put into place, and we are nearly there, we will see more enterprises embrace these innovative digital assets. That's pretty major to say the least. All right. Back to BlockDaemon for a moment. I want you guys to see this. So, for one, what's interesting here is BlockDaemon, of course, announced back in May of 23 or 2024 the announcement of support of BSN Spartan Network. Now, this is important because when you get down into it, it's the bottom part. It's understanding the whole thing of institutional vaults, where they stand with nodes and APIs. But again, constant references to staking APIs, and of course, some of the protocols, whether it's Algorand, some of these other big ones, right? BNB, Axelar, Avalanche, etc., and also other protocols. Where I want to put focus for you guys is what you're going to see here, and it's the supporting leading protocols. BlockDaemon gives you unparalleled access to the world's premier blockchain and, of course, protocols. Quant Network also does the same thing. All right. And, of course, there's a filter here. But, where the case be, I want to point out why it's significant to you. Look at the participating member countries, locations, and so on. This is BlockDaemon.com's infrastructure. And like it points out, the green is cloud. And, of course, the purple is bare metal. From what I gathered here, just about every single nation has, for example, a membership into ISO/TC 307. Don't believe it? Look at this. Participating members. This has actually been updated. It's about 42 right now. And again, very, very similar. And like it says here, ISO/TC 307 currently operates in structured cells, created and disbanded when needed. But you have all these working groups, use cases, interoperability, security, privacy, smart contracts. You kind of get the gist of it, right? Take this next part. Before I get to that next part, I should say, we, of course, see Hong Kong listed there. And on the far left, below Canada, you do see China. So just in case you weren't aware of that and you're new to Quant, I want you guys to understand, especially, again, if you're new, that ISO/TC 307 is, in fact, the Quant network standard. And that's a big deal moving, of course, forward. Let's take you to this other area. And just a brief little emphasis on this. It's the whole thing of ISO/TC 307 member countries versus blockchain member countries. As I pointed out in the visual, very, very similar. But as of August 2022, there were 42 participating members and 21 observing members for ISO/TC 307 Quant Network Standard. For BlockDaemon, on the other hand, their reach has global infrastructure spanning 6 continents with over 40 locations. So in reality, very, very similar. There is key differences in the two, but in essence, TC 307 with Quant creates the standards, and BlockDaemon provides the infrastructure that can help business and institutions operate within those standards. Next part, about the security. If you go to blockdaemon.com/security, you will see security first blockchain infrastructure, institutional grade. Security protects staking, nodes, APIs, wallets, and vaults. Interesting. How about this? This other part. Because again, sometimes you feel as though, at least I do, it's more a coincidence that when you look at the website stack, it's almost like a mirror of the Quant network. And if you don't believe me, I want you to take a look into this. So for one, they point out the overview of one blockchain API to access multiple protocols. BlockDaemon provides fully indexed API access to blockchain data using REST APIs. Guess who also does that? Quant network. And if anything, if you think as though that this is a coincidence, take a look at this when it comes to this. I mean, literally, was it the same guy who developed the one for BlockDaemon, did the same thing as you see here with the Quant network? Call it a coincidence. I think that's more than a coincidence because, again, both highlight APIs and both obviously use REST APIs. And here's the other part. It's a snapshot. Overledger introduction. Overledger API is a snapshot. And again, constant references to APIs, Transact API, Search API, Webhooks API, Smart Contract API, Token API, Authorize API, Bridge, and of course, REST. You kind of get the idea about that. Now let's talk about Swift for a brief moment. All right. So Swift transaction ordering. As we know, they are an ordering book. They don't do the transactions, right? Hence why Ripple XRP would stand out so much. Stellar XLM would stand out so much. Now here's what's interesting. When you type that in, obviously the number one search result for SEO is going to come up as Swift.com. Well, no kidding. But number two is this company called Trolley. And in the highlight for Trolley, it mentions API for Swift payments. Don't wait. Try Trolley now. Global automated Swift payout platform and API. Any country, local currency, so on and so forth. That's major. And remember at the beginning of the outline, I mentioned Tipalti? Yeah. But let's focus on Trolley for a moment. Because with Trolley, what do we see here? We see specifically streamline and automate your Swift payments with Trolley. Looking for a solution that makes it easy to send Swift payments to contractors, vendors, and suppliers worldwide? Trolley is a payouts management and automation platform that makes international transfers seamless. And who recently joined up with PayPal? It's Stellar. And what do you see here in regards to, excuse me, here, talk too much, right? What do you see here in regard to specifically a payout method? You see Venmo and you see PayPal. And again, Jed McCaleb a while back did talk about what? How he saw Stellar becoming a global Venmo.
So, I mean, the biggest thing that we're working on is kind of above the protocol. It's this consumer wallet for people to actually use Stellar, which I'm pretty excited about. It's essentially, you can kind of think of it like a global Venmo, where it's allows you to do cross-border payments, save money in dollars in places where they have really high inflation, things like that. So,
okay, I'm just throwing that out there. We don't have confirmation on that, but we definitely have confirmation on what? PayPal, as mentioned by Danelle Dixon recently. So that's interesting. Okay, let's get into the next part of it all. So for one, I want to point out this. This gets extremely interesting for me, at least, because the integrations, Epic Games, SoundCloud, you have some of these other ones, and ArtStation, okay? Multilingual connections. There's a whole big list here, right? And one time at Bandcamp, apparently, all right, had to have a little fun. There's stacks, not the stacks you're thinking of. And this part, ROI Trolley customers have seen 3 weeks of end of year tax work saved annually. Gilbert Verdian talked about some of these things, about saving a lot of money by leveraging the existing tech. Even the ones that aren't technically part of blockchain. 50% in annual fees by switching to Trolley. Multilingual connections, so on and so forth. See how Trolley easily scales your Swift payments. All right, check this out. And if anything, if you guys have been following ZBCN, Rue Black and I did an outline recently about the connection of XRP and Cross River, and of course the connection to even Zebek. Well, what do you see here? Trolley. Again, paging Rue Black. Paging Rue Black. Trolley. Look at what it says. Deposits held at Cross River Bank. My goodness. That is something. Do they mention Australia? They do. Australia is blanketed by ISO TC 307. And we also see the whole thing to the UK. That is something else. That is major. Now, I want to state this. You will see, and by all means, you're more than welcome to watch it. So, above my head, as we speak, there's a link to that video. I fast forward to that key area, okay? So that key area is basically the whole thing with Rue Black, okay? So let's go ahead and pull this back up. Here's the video. If you want to do a manual search called Cracking the Code to FedNow, the ZBEC XRP connection. So this is why we're highlighting ZBEC. And if you want to just fast forward to that key area, you're going to go to basically on the chapter, it's going to be 2327 across river and ISO 222 payments. And it's roughly, I'm going to say about a good 10 minutes or so, maybe 8 to 10 minutes. Bombshell, absolute bombshell. You want to learn why that's so important, okay? So take it this next part. Well, shout out to Bearable Guy 123. Shout out to a person in our community, lovely lady. You know who you are. I was going to say BB, right? Fam Barajas, she follows Bearable Guy 123. And look what you have here. That is a ZBEC ship, is it not? And he says, yeehaw, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year 2025. Now, again, I do agree with Rue. Symbolism, there's something there with that. Again, why does Bearable Guy constantly share the ship, right? Because there is something there. The ripples and the waves mean something. That ship of ZBEC means something, right? Absolutely means something. And as we also know, Donald Trump met, of course, with Brad Garlinghouse, the Stuart Alderati. But interesting, again, to see the symbolism. Rue Black did an excellent job of pointing this out. You see in the background these ships. Those ships are technically ZBEC ships. ZBEC is the right way to pronounce it, but of course the team calls it ZBEC. Whatever you want to call it, those are called ZBEC ships. That's how it's pronounced. So again, those ships, the waves, and so on, and behind them, I mean, there's a candle, green. I mean, call it what you want. It's symbolism. Might be a big, giant coincidence, but that's important. Back to the whole thing at Trolley.com. Streamline, automate your SWIFT payments, of course, with Trolley. And again, I just think this is so much more than coincidence. Take you further into it, they even have a YouTube channel. Trolley is the payouts platform for the internet economy. Think about this for a moment, okay? It says their vision is to unlock the collective economic opportunity of the internet for everyone by building a truly global payouts ecosystem. That's major. Businesses use Trolley to automate payouts, collect recipient information, and mitigate fraud, and while paying creators, on-demand workers, and suppliers from around the world. Okay, would this be in alignment with things like ADP, which obviously has connection to both Quant network with integration and also, of course, ZBEC? I think the answer is yes. But how so? Isn't a global payouts ecosystem basically payroll? Well, not exactly. Here's why. Payroll specifically focuses on paying employees, but global payouts encompass a wider range of disbursements. In fact, it's more important than just payroll. They pay remote workers and freelancers, crucial for businesses and international teams. They have settling supplier invoices, which is crucial for businesses that pay international vendors for goods and services. They have processing for customer refunds. Again, you see how it works. Handling affiliate payments, sending mass payments, and of course, things like payroll. All right, are you ready to boil it? Are you ready to mash it? Ready to stick it in stew? Some people say it's corny. Hey, it's my slogan. I'm going to do me. You do you. Look what it says here. Zapier.com. Connect Overledger and Trolley to unlock the power of automation. Ladies and gentlemen, I feel in my whole heart 100% we're going to be insanely wealthy. Yeah, with Quant, especially your Ripple XRPs, any of these really tied to this ISO 222 thing. But again, think about the significance to SWIFT, right? Not SWIFT blockchain, but to SWIFT, traditional SWIFT. There's the evidence. There's the receipts. Yes, I first went to make.com. Then I went to PipeDream. And then I saw this and I was blown away. I almost just lost it, right? I was like, wow, this is something else. That's why I say boil it, mash it, stick it in a stew. So pull up more about this. As you see, connect Overledger and Trolley to unlock the power of automation. And like it shows here, when this happens with Overledger to create a trigger, choose an action, automatically do this, of course, with Trolley. Automatically do what? Yeah, the whole thing was Swift, everybody. That's why I put this all together. And yeah, it's not a short video. I think you can see why. All right, what about Stellar for a moment? We did include them. Well, they deserve to be highlighted just as much as the next one because they are excited to announce many years ago that Chinese exchange Wanbao is adding lumens for CNY XLM transactions. That was many years ago, but it's still there. Pull up the next part. Is there anything similar to what Quant Network has in regards to documentation, especially when it comes to Chinese translation? Well, a little bit. You do see over here on GitHub Chinese translation of Stellar documentation, and that was forked from Overcat/Stellar docs. And like it says, Stellar CN. Next part shows this, all from Stellar CN, and of course all in Chinese. I don't know if it's, I imagine it'd be Mandarin, right? Since we were talking about Beijing earlier, but it could also be in basically in Hong Kong they speak Cantonese, right? So again, Stellar client library for the Python language, and again, all this part of the ecosystem, and again, Stellar CN. As a Stellar China, they definitely have a plug. All right, one more quick one for XRP. Leanne joined Ripple XRP's network of over 100 financial institutions. A lot of you guys know about this. There's always going to be some hot shot in the comments. No offense. It's going to be like, oh yeah, we recovered this years ago. Hey, well, hey, guess what, you? Good for you. There's a lot of new people, and there's a lot of people that get their news not just from one source. So if anything, nothing against you, God bless you, but let's just come back to reality for a moment. And as we see here, look what it mentions. It mentions that Lian Lang International did in fact join Ripple's global financial network, RippleNet, in February 2018, and at the time, Ripple already had over 100 financial institutions on its network. There's key points about this because Lian Lang is a major Chinese payment processor and Hong Kong licensed international money service company. They joined RippleNet to facilitate instant blockchain-powered cross-border payments into and out of China. There's benefits. The partnership aimed to offer faster, more cost-efficient payments to customers, enabling transactions in the 19 currencies Lian supported. And again, call this basically part 2 of that original video. You will now see an end screen card, which is going to pop up here, right here. Click on that. You'll see more connections and more of this deep dive about how, holy cow, basically China chooses XRP, XLM, and Quant. Thanks again for tuning in, everybody. I really, really do appreciate you. Simply do me a solid and type in this keyword into the comments if you listen to the entire outline. Because let's face it, most people only listen about 5 or 6 minutes. And that keyword is what? It's all the money once again. So just type in all the money. That's a phrase. Just type in all the money. And we'll know, or I'll know, and the community will know that you listened to the entire outline. On behalf of myself and all those I'm networked with, know what you have, know why you hold it. The research trumps FUD 110%. Be out on the lookout for hopefully more research, even from me. Post it over on X. And of course, like I mentioned before, you can follow me over on the X platform, which basically is right here at DPG Maximus. We'll see you on the next one.